Hi, welcome back. This is week 25. This is our 25th video since we started our startup. We are working on 2 ideas, and today we're going to talk about what is a startup. So let's go on with the video. Hi, my name is Hiroki Kudo, and I am a serial entrepreneur. I'm working with a team of 4 people to ambitiously create a unicorn startup and document the progress each week. In this video, I'll talk about the progress of our 2 ideas, also the confidence level that we have, and finally, I'd like to answer a question that I got in the comments section 2 weeks ago. What is a startup? So if you're new to this channel, and if you're interested in startups, please subscribe and like this video. Also, if you have any questions or any advice to us, please write it on the comment section below. We appreciate feedback and any information. And also, by liking us and subscribing to the channel, we can share this information to startups and startup wannabes so they can increase their success rate. So thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking this video. Okay, so the progress of our startup. I'm going to talk about the 2 ideas, the escrow service and the construction software idea that we had. If you're interested about the ideas, you can go to the videos above. For the construction software idea, we continue our interviews. I talked to an HR agent, which is located in Victoria. I had a chance to talk with the CEO. She gave me more insight about the construction industry. One thing she mentioned was that as a professional in HR, it was really difficult to provide any advice or service to construction companies or people in the industry. They considered people who were not in the industry as outsiders. So it would be difficult if you had no construction industry experience. I worked in 2 startups in other companies, but I know that hiring is really difficult. And also to create an organization and to strengthen that is really tough as well. You definitely need professionals to help you out. So even if you're in the software industry or construction industry, food industry, whatever your industry is, still you would need professionals to do the hiring, onboarding, training, also creating your organization, how you set up your incentive systems, how you offboard people who don't fit the organization, how you build your culture. All that is extremely important to build up your company culture and to have a very strong team. So we've had agents helping us with hiring. We've had consultants help with creating our organization structure and our incentive structure. All that was absolutely necessary. It seems like in the construction industry, if you have not come from construction industry, it is hard to communicate or to actually provide your service to those companies. I think this is maybe a bit of overgeneralization, but that seems to be true to a certain trend. She was mentioning that construction companies, the industry in general, were having a tough time hiring skilled labor, but also non-skilled labor. And the hiring process would be over text. She had observed that a lot of the hiring process was done through text. So basically you would have somebody saying, hey, I'd like to work, and then they would immediately get a text back saying, hey, when can you start? There will be not much resume screening process. There will be no interviews. So it was right away hiring. She also told me that the turnover rate was quite high, so people go in and out. So it seemed to be really difficult to retain the workers in your company. Regarding paying people who had no experience in construction industry to get them to skilled levels, for example, if you had somebody who's willing to get the training but doesn't have the financial power to go to, let's say, become a trades, to go to community college or whatnot for 1 year or so. She didn't know of any training program that the construction companies would provide. We've seen that sort of training service, we've seen that benefit in the healthcare industry, but so far we haven't found that in the construction industry. I found that very interesting. She advised that there might be associations or other organizations that help that, but she didn't know of any company that would do that. Since construction companies are looking for skilled labor, it would make a lot of sense if you would pay for the person to get the education training necessary and then hire. Also from the worker perspective, they would make much more money if they were once trained, and there would be definitely jobs available for them. So it would be probably a win-win situation. Really interesting why that isn't happening at the moment. Also, we're continuing to look into the construction software and mapping them out, understanding what exists, which industry, which part of software is really strong, and see if there's any niches between that. I think we'll get this done in the next few weeks. Moving on to idea 2, escrow service. So for escrow service, it would seem to be very difficult for consumer to consumer. It would probably make more sense in business to business. I threw a question on Vancouver Tech Journal's Slack workspace, asking if anybody had any issues when they're providing some product or service that was quite expensive, and if anybody got ripped off or run away without getting paid, or vice versa. I got a lot of very insightful tips around how to avoid getting ripped off. So asking deposits, phasing the payments. Also, if your software, don't deliver the code until you get the full payment, etc. So thank you very much for all the advice. Regarding if escrow or any sort of third-party service would be useful in that situation, there were comments saying that if you were to suggest to use such a service, it would right away indicate to the opponent that you were not trusting them. That will leave a negative impression to the opponent, to the other company. So would you be able to suggest that in actual life? It might be a bit tricky. But I've seen at the same time, looking at the comments, there are some companies who have had or experienced that sort of situation, whereas you were delivering service product and you were just a bit uncomfortable whether you're going to get paid. So for high volume transactions, this seems to be an issue. The question probably is, how do you frame the service, whether it's escrow or getting a third party involved? How do you frame that properly so that you don't indicate that you're not trusting the other company? I think in a way, these services would benefit both parties. So you would say, just in case like we aren't able to deliver or reducing the risk on the other company's side also would be a good explanation to pitch this service toward them. So that's the progress this week. Confidence level wise, so for construction service, I think there's still a quite high possibility to provide some sort of software in a niche segment that would help construction. Again, we're still exploring what it is because the construction industry is very large and it's vastly spread out. So in numbers, out of 100, we put it 30% confidence level. I think there's something there that we can find as a problem and we can solve. Lastly, I'd like to answer a question in the comment section. So thank you, Bikram, for asking a question. Again, if you're watching this video and you have any questions around startups or businesses, please write it on the comment section. I'll be happy to answer that question. So I recorded this video last week, but we didn't have time to push it into the video. So I'm going to transfer to that part. Thank you, Bikram, for asking this question. So he asked, what is a startup? And that's a good question, because starting a business is not equal to starting a startup. What is a startup? How different is it to all the other businesses? So let's go for the definition. For startups, There's a lot of definitions. You can go on dictionaries, but I don't think that will be a good way to define. Most of the dictionaries don't have a good definition for startups. I like to use the definition that Steve Blank has. He says, a startup is a temporary organization designed to search for repeatable and scalable business model. One of these startup objectives is to create a new business model. Let's say you're creating a really exciting marketing agency. That itself is not a startup. As fast as it might grow, if it doesn't have a new business model, it's not a startup. So there's a lot of businesses outside of startups that you can pursue. So you can inherit a family business and grow that like tenfold. You can become a franchise owner. You can become a, let's say, gas station owner. You can do a fast food chain. All of that require entrepreneurship and could be wonderful business opportunities. Also, you can buy businesses. Let's say there's an old restaurant nearby that the owner are getting really old and they want to retire. You can strike a deal with them, buying that business out and continue to get cash flow, or maybe improve the restaurant and create a restaurant chain. Also, you can go into the real estate industry and start your own real estate company. Those are all wonderful businesses. There's a potential that you can make millions. You can be rich, you can be happy about your business. Absolutely. There's no right or wrong. There's no better or worse. It's up to you what kind of lifestyle, what kind of business you are comfortable with. But with startups, we're trying to build a new business model. So it's more risky. It's kind of like if you're going to build a house and you copy, you have the exact blueprints of something that you've done in the past and you've done it many times, creating that type of house will not involve that much risk. But if you're going to create an Olympic stadium using new material, a design that nobody has seen, bringing in new technology, the possibility involved in completing that project successfully drops quite a bit. So there's more risk involved in new projects in general. Therefore, startups are difficult to succeed. Then why do people pursue becoming a founder of a startup? Well, with higher risks, high return. As we talked about, there are unicorn startups. Unicorns are companies that are valued over $1 billion prior to IPO, prior to M&A. I wouldn't say it would be impossible to grow your restaurant business into that, but startups have proven that they can show exponential growth. Not only making a lot of revenue through your business, but also some business will change the industry entirely. So think of the era before we had Uber or Grab in some regions. You were dependent on taxis. And for some countries and regions, taxis are not the best way of transportation. There's so many pain points around using their service. So Uber introduced a new way of transportation, which has made our lives much easier. So startups can be in IT, information technology, it can be in biochemistry, it can be in hardware. There are a lot of physical products out there that are innovative. It could be in food. We have Beyond Meat and new types of providing nutrition to consumers. So there's a whole variety of genres to start your startup. So who defines whether you're a startup or not? There's actually usually not a very clear line of what is a startup, what not is a startup. You kind of self-define yourself. There will be some arguments about some startups saying that, hey, that's not really a startup. It's a fast-growing company for sure, but that isn't really a startup. For some countries, there's some approval. For some, there'll be some characteristics on what startups are. A lot of startups get external funding through equity finance. That is, in exchange of issuing new shares, you get cash. There's these companies or firms that are called
VCs, venture capitals, that do that as a business, that help startups to grow and give them the fuel, the cash they need to further grow and get a high return. But again, that's one characteristic, and not all startups match that characteristic. There are some startups that are bootstrapped, meaning that the team or the founder funds the startup entirely without getting any external funding. So Bikram, I hope that clarifies the question. Okay, so thank you very much for watching this video to the very end. We really appreciate all the views. If you like this content, if you're interested in startups, please like, subscribe to the video so that this news can reach to all those entrepreneurs, startups out there. So till we see you next week, bye.